What does it actually cost to sell your home in West Hartford, Connecticut? Most sellers underestimate this. Today I want to take a look at a simple, clear look at all the closing costs a seller takes on so that you can start to gauge what you might net on a sale. A lot of times sellers see a value or get a value of their home, and we tend to put that number in our head, and then once we start diving in to how much we're actually going to walk away with, it's a completely different story. So first thing I wrote down, and again, if you have questions as you're getting into this, don't be shy. You can call, text, email. I'm always happy to help dive in and map things out for your specific situation if you'd like. But the first thing we always look at that I wrote down is real estate commissions. Now, there has been a lot of talk about this over the past couple of years with the NAR settlement. And this is a common question that sellers want to dive into on listing appointments, right? So I pulled up a couple articles, one from Yahoo Finance, one from Redfin, on what commissions look like post NAR settlement, and I'll attach the links in the description to the video. The average buyer side commission right now is 2.43% according to this article. And then the average total commission, list and buy side, is 5.44% according to the article. So this is taking everything into account, taking into account discount brokers, full service brokers, and everything in between. The most important thing you want to ask yourself as a seller, as a buyer, or ask the agent you're working with is, what services are they going to provide? Am I pretty much taking this on myself, doing my own pictures, answering my own calls, borrowing a contract and making all the decisions for myself? Or is there a process that you have and have used before that I'm being put into, that my home's being put into, that's going to make this smooth and has shown duplicatable success, right? It's still very common in the marketplace to have the full service agents with the good track record around 6%. When you look at buy and sell side, according to this report, and certainly what I've seen in the marketplace, is almost all contracts do have a buyer agent commission, and it is, according to this article, in that 2.5% range that we've been so accustomed to over the years. There's always going to be outliers, but if you're just running generic numbers, taking this 5.5%, 5%, 6%, somewhere in that range, depending on what service you're looking for, what results you're looking for, I think is a good barometer for you to just pre-plan numbers if you're trying to do this generally. From an agent interviewing process perspective, I would definitely dive in and ask some questions about what specifically an agent's doing, not just what commission they're charging, just so you can be an informed buyer or seller and see if there's any value based on that commission, right? If an agent's charging you 1%, but you have to do it yourself, but maybe that's not a place you want to be in terms of negotiating such a big transaction. Or maybe an agent's charging 6% and offering you a lot of bells and whistles that you're not really looking for, and you're the type of person that does want to control it all and does, I've certainly met people that they want to control the sale. They want to talk to every agent, every buyer. They want to be at every showing, and they believe that's important. And I'm not here to say what I've seen work or what doesn't in this situation, but I can say that if that's your personality type, the for sale by owner certainly makes sense. But if you're someone that wants to know if an agent's track record actually works or not, look at their results, right? There's so many resources out there. You can go on Zillow and pull their sales history. You can go on Google and look at how many reviews they have. Zillow has reviews. So you can really cross-check an agent's plan to see how well it's performing in the marketplace with how much information we have out there right now. So for planning purposes, use somewhere between 5 and 6%, unless you're the personality type that wants to control it all, do it all yourself. Then you still probably want to account for that buyer agent commission around 2.5%, to create enough competition to get enough people in there that's actually going to pay, a fair market value price. I always say plan for the worst, hope for the best. Using these averages from the articles I'm going to include will give you a good baseline on real estate commissions. Second thing I wrote down, state and town, state and town conveyance tax. So in West Hartford, you're looking at a 1% total for the town and the state, right? This is something outside of real estate agents, outside of attorneys. It's simply, the state laws in terms of taxing sales in Connecticut. You're going to look at 1% right off the top in terms of conveyance taxes. Next thing I wrote down is tax credit. You'll get a credit of property tax. You've depending on when the sale happens, you've paid your property taxes up until a certain point, and you'll get a credit for when you actually sell the home based on how much you've prepaid. So that depends on the exact closing date. Your attorney will work it out, or your agent can actually give you some rough numbers on that too. But you'll get some type of credit for property taxes in Connecticut. Next thing I wrote down, attorney fees. We're seeing anywhere between $900, $2,500 for attorney fees. Just like real estate agents, ask your attorney questions. Ask them who you're going to be dealing with. Ask if you can talk to the paralegal if it's the paralegal. Ask them how many real estate closings they do a year. Right? There's many different attorneys out there. And having one with a skill set in real estate I've seen is extremely important. Listen, when a transaction goes smooth, it's a moot point. But if there's a hiccup and the attorneys come involved because one party's trying to bend the rules of the contract, who you work with matters, and their experience in that real estate field certainly matters. So again, depending on the experience level in the field, that price will vary. But for you to run some rough numbers here and get a general idea, you can pick anywhere in that $1,000, $2,500 a month range, split it in the middle, somewhere around $1,500, $1,600, will be really good for doing your rough estimates. Next thing I wrote down is moving costs. So depending on the size of your home, you're looking for anywhere between $2,500, $5,000, depending on how big your home is, and hiring a moving company to come in and move your things. Obviously, this depends how far you're moving the items. Depends how big your house is, how many things you have. But again, for planning purposes, using some number in that range depending on the size here. If you're 4-bedroom plus, you have a house over 2,500 square feet, I would definitely go closer to that 5,000 range for a rough number. If you have a smaller 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom house, 12, 13, 1,400 square feet, going towards the lower end of that range for some rough numbers for some estimating purposes. Next thing I wrote down, and the final thing actually, is home prep. Now this one I really recommend you hold off and don't guess on, right? This is where I see a lot of sellers not only spending a lot of money, but time on doing things that might not necessarily help them net more money in the sale. Have a realtor who's doing a lot of volume in your area come in, give you an idea of if you should put any energy into some home prep, or if actually selling it the way it is actually better fit for the marketplace. I've seen some of the craziest multiple offer situations come on homes that were a bit dated, that other agents have written off, that sellers wanted to sell with personal items in it and doing nothing as is. I've seen a lot of those homes go crazy with multiple offers. And I've also seen a lot of homes that are pristine, perfectly remodeled, go crazy with multiple offers. They are both very desirable pockets of the marketplace, right? So unless you're going to get in here and redo everything in your home and make it all brand new, a lot of times it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it can make sense to do some light prep, landscaping, walls, floors, cleaning those up, countertops. A lot of times that can make sense, but even then, if your whole house is closer to the entry-level dated home, you're not going to move the needle a lot, and you're going to spend some time and money doing it. Sometimes you can create more intrigue because of the market that you're going to attract with that more cluttered home, as crazy as that sounds, because of all the fixer-upper shows and the YouTube videos and everybody trying to fix up properties, this type of home has a following, has a large portion of the marketplace that want to buy them and will overpay in a competitive situation. So this is a very strategic question. Before you do any guesswork, have somebody come in to help you with that home prep. I'm going to say you leave this blank for now. If you're watching this video looking at rough numbers, leave the home prep blank for now until you have an agent get in there and give you an exact idea. But in any circumstance, almost any circumstance, we're not looking at more than a couple $1,000s to freshen up what you have. We're not looking to invest large amounts of money if your goal is to sell the property and net the most, with very few exceptions. So if you want me to map out your situation a little more clearly, dive in a little deeper based on your specifics, I'm happy to give you much more specific numbers. This was general, just as a broad base for West Hartford, Connecticut residents to kind of go through and see how much they might walk away with if they're playing with numbers. But if you want something more specific, I'm always happy to help. We get calls all the time from people who watch these videos. Hope this one was helpful, and I'll see you later this week.